John Carter calls me one day out of clear blue and said, I got your number from James Jordan, through Ornette, and he says, I'm doing stuff I think like what you're interested in. I'd like to come out to your place and talk to you about it. And he came to my house in Pomona one day with his wife, 3 sons and 1 daughter. This was like 1968, 69. We sat there for hours talking while the kids played out in the yard and our 2 wives were talking and all. And he said, I can see, from what I've heard with what you've done so far, that you're interested in the area that I'm working in. I'd love for us to get together. In much the same way I was approached by Ornette. But you see, John Carter was a regular music teacher in the LA Unified School District. That's what he did every day. His wife was an RN, so they had gotten past the point of struggling for food on the table. He was working. And so he said, I'd love to get together and start going over some of my music. And I would drive in Tuesday and Thursday into LA and we rehearsed. There's a picture on our first album. We're standing up on the dock there where the red car stopped. It's like 103rd and Grandee.
Between 1969 and 1975, Bobby Bradford and John Carter could not be stopped. Their explorations of improvisational music became albums like Seeking, Flight of 4, Self-Determination Music, Secrets, and a live recording in '75 called No U-Turn, live in Pasadena. Although their music was often called free jazz, they avoided giving it a label in order for the music to continue growing in an organic manner. They simply wanted to extend the tradition of improvised music known as jazz.
He and I had gotten together and he'd auditioned drummers and bass players, and he finally got some people that were sort of empathetic to what he was doing. Everybody's calling this the new music. They're calling it free jazz. They're calling it just improvised music and all. He said, we both get it about what these names are, but we both want to play music now that's about improvisation, but we want it to be as spontaneous as we can, because that's what jazz meant from the very beginning. Try to play something about what you're doing right now if you can, if you have the ability and you get the ideas. And so that goes all the way back to a point in New Orleans with these guys playing in the streets who could barely play the horn. But they knew that you could make a noise, as the Bible says, make a joyful noise. And so very little in terms of the theory of music in it, but the idea of getting the horn out and playing in the spirit of the moment. And those parades in New Orleans. And that part of New Orleans that was kind of a red light district, you see. So both of us had come to a point where we said, well, you got a job, I have too. We don't want to keep that up, but it doesn't look like we're going to be able to make any money in Los Angeles. We're still going to have to work. So I was the one who had to come in from way out, and my wife said, after a full day, you're going to drive into LA on Tuesday, Thursday night, and the freeways weren't so bad then. I would come in from my job, come home, have to eat, we'd get in the car and go, and we'd rehearse. We'd play a little storefront there on 103rd and Grandee, trying to get this music together. And this was after the, as a lot of people don't like the word riots, a revolution, but we rehearsed for almost a year before we could get anybody to get us to play. And our first job, you see, was at the Century City Playhouse, because we had gone around and auditioned for people in clubs. I said, no, that stuff, people aren't ready for that. We got a lot of that. We auditioned for Howard Rumsey, who ran the Lighthouse, He said, you guys are wonderful musicians here, but I can't sell that. He said, I got to pay the rent here. People are not going to pay to hear that. And of course, a lot of people said, well, I said, there's no point getting mad at him now, because nobody was going to pay to come and hear us. We didn't have an audience. We were trying to build an audience. And the guy who booked us on that first thing at Century City Playhouse, he liked what we were doing. This little place that ordinarily was a theater. Only seated about 60, 65 people. And so we played there playing our own music. And we thought it was a great leap forward, because we got out there, we weren't playing any bebop material. We weren't playing all that cold. And we felt like this is a step forward, And we had Bruz Freeman on drums and Tom Williamson on bass.
Bobby Bradford and John Carter stayed true to the music. The search for a new black man led them deep into history, dealing with topics like slavery on plantations in the South, even further back to the slave castles of the western coast of the continent. They put forth a series of albums in the 1980s called Roots and Folklore, with titles like Daoue, Castles of Ghana, Fields, Dance of the Love Ghost, and Shadows on a Wall.
All of these with octet. One recorded here in Los Angeles, or maybe two and three or four in New York. All part of a body of music. And all of this was the John Carter octet. And he was using musicians because of the budget, sometimes people in New York. And there were times and occasions where we both were in agreement that the guy who was doing the recording was suggesting that he use certain people in New York. And so John said, I'll have to sacrifice and go ahead and do that. Because this guy is the only one who's coming forward now wanting to record the bands. Sometimes we go there and it'll be just me and him, and the rest of the people in the octet will be people in New York. All these things were on vinyl. He and I did a lot of traveling even in Europe. We're just a duo. We played once at the North Sea Jazz Festival. Both scared out of our wits, man. We looked out there from backstage, and there was a group before us, some Belgians, whatever. We looked out there, man, it's like, 4,000 people. And so we both standing there and said, John said to me, you scared, man? I said, yeah, you do? Just clarinet and cornet, man. And you just follow the band, about 6 people with all a bunch of written arrangements and all. And he says, no time for us like to get shaking the knees now, man, And we played all over Europe, man. A lot more in Germany and even in Bavaria, in Holland, found an audience. We were playing the music where the musicians in Europe could say, we can relate to that because we can come into that without having any blues experience. We can bring our own and improvise music that is not necessarily jazz. At some of the festivals that we play, and I get this, the poster says one of those big festivals, blues, jazz, improvised music. I say, wait a minute, it's improvised music. It's not jazz. But I can see now the Europeans are saying, we want to play on the playground too. But you can't ask us now to reach into our Negro past. We can bring our love for what you're doing into this. Bring what we have. And I said, I can relate to that too. Yes. I said, if you try to come in now and do something like the American Negro music, you're already digging your own grave. You don't have that. If you come from Norway, you have to bring your musical past. Improvised music has a place, which it always had. But now it's bigger than ever.